Spurgeon here with RevZilla, and by this point in the video, you're probably wondering what's in the box. Well, this is a CSC San Gabriel 250, and the reason it's in this giant shipping crate is because this is how it shows up to your house once you purchase the bike online. And that's because CSC is disrupting the dealership model. They've eliminated the dealership. They're allowing you to buy the motorcycle online and have it shipped directly to your front door. And in this video, what we're gonna do is we're gonna walk you through the entire experience of what it's like to get a CSC motorcycle. And the first thing we need to do is get this thing out of the box. That was pretty damn easy. I mean, about 20 minutes start to finish to get the thing out of the crate. I'd definitely recommend having a friend like Joe around to help you out with lifting the crate off and getting the bike out of the base. But I mean, we pulled this out, we put the key in and we fired it right up and we were set to go. The only thing we had to really install were the mirrors. It had gas, oil, a charged battery already set for us to ride. I mean, just taking a look at this thing in the studio, not too mad at it. I mean, it's got a really rad paint job on it. You got a full dash setup with a speedo, a tack. I got a gear indicator, a fuel gauge, really well backlit setup there. Got bright LED turn signals. I mean, the style of the bike is pretty cool. I will say there's some areas where you can tell it's a $2,000 motorcycle. The levers aren't the best. You got wires kind of running everywhere. I got a brake pedal down there the size of Kansas. And then our seat is definitely a bit crooked on this model, but there's nothing you can't live with. I mean, it's a $2,000 motorcycle. At the end of the day, if I was buying my first bike and I shipped away for this thing and it showed up like this on my front door, I'd be pretty damn stoked. But now what I want to know is, what is this bike like to ride? This is the moment that I've been waiting for. So let's go out and over the next few days, put a couple hundred miles on this thing and we'll see what it can do.
Alright, so let's get this out of the way first. This bike is actually a lot of fun to ride. Aside from a few off-road escapades that I've had on my 1090, the SG250 has pretty much been my bike of choice since we unboxed it. And I think a lot of that is because this reminds me of being, a broke college kid throwing my leg over a motorcycle for the first time. It's part of the reason I came out to these backcountry roads south of Kutztown. These are my old stomping grounds. You get out here in the country and there's a lot of fun to be had. I mean, I'm easily breaking the speed limit. As long as the speed limit's 35 miles an hour. So the speed limit here is about 70 miles an hour. And in spite of the fact that my speedometer says that I'm going about 80, I passed a speed trap sign earlier that said I was doing about 61, so that speedometer is a bit off. For as small as this bike is, it's actually pretty peppy. Don't get me wrong, it's beginner friendly. You're looking at like 16 horsepower and 13 foot-pounds of torque. This bike is not going to get away from anyone. Kind of having a lot of fun blasting from stop sign to stop sign. Not too mad at this thing at all. I kind of hate this bike at the moment. I am fully maxed out and I feel like I'm standing still. This is not an appropriate machine for highway travel. That being said, I mean, it's like $1,000 less than a Grom, and I wouldn't even consider taking a Grom on the highway. I know the one that we have at the office, my top speed on it was like 47 miles an hour, so this will at least get you on the highway. It's just not a lot of fun. This bike is so much fun. There's nothing to be afraid of because it's so small. I'm pretty much going wide open throttle on these curvy country roads. I mean, it handles itself pretty well. This bike actually steers surprisingly well, especially considering the fact that the front forks look like they're something off of a Huffy I had as a child growing up. I could complain about the fact that every time I hit a small pothole at speed, I will bottom out the front fork, but the bike steers easy enough. We just avoid the potholes. That solves that problem. I think the SG250 could be an appropriate commuting machine, depending on the kind of commuting you're doing. Going back and forth from your job to work within the city limits, that's one thing, but if you were doing a Lemmy-style commute, 50, 60 miles on the freeway in both directions, man, that would be miserable. I could totally see myself riding back and forth to school on this if I was 20 years old back in college. I mean, showing up to class on a motorcycle is a heck of a lot cooler than showing up to class in like a f***ing Camry, or in my case, a 1987 Dodge minivan. That's right, ladies. That was a minivan owner. I don't know, when you wake up in the morning, getting in a car just isn't the same. Getting on a motorcycle, riding to class, At least you get to enjoy your commute, even if you're, heading off to algebra. Woo-hoo-hoo! Whee! Watch this. There are no safety features on this motorcycle. No traction control, no ABS. This is a bare bones basic bike. I mean, then again, there's really not too much to control. I've been going pretty much wide open throttle all day long, and there's not really been one point where I felt out of control on this bike. The brakes feel like two pieces of wood clamping down on the rotor. It's not making a lot of speed here, so I'm not too worried about it, but I wouldn't mind a little bit more bite out of that front brake. But all things considered, this bike is pretty stable on the highway considering I'm maxed out right now. Man, if I was only ever riding in the city, I don't think I would ever need more power than this bike has to offer. I'm having a lot more fun on this than some of the big horsepower sport bikes I've ridden in the city. I am very excited to get off this highway. I'm gonna work my way back to Philadelphia and find a spot to pull over, and we can carry on this conversation when I'm off the bike.
So what have I learned thus far? Well, I've learned the engine is not the fastest, the brakes are not the best, and as far as the suspension is concerned, I'm gonna quote our fearless leader of our common tread, Lance Lightning Oliver, when he says that the suspension is both plush as well as harsh, something he's never experienced before in a motorcycle. But considering all of that, this bike is still a ton of fun. It's simple, it's small, it's easy to ride, and most importantly, it's affordable. It has an MSRP of $1,995. Even after you factor in all the costs that are clearly listed out on CSC's website, this bike comes to your house, shows up at your front door for about $2,500. I mean, that's awesome, especially considering something like the Honda Monkey that Lemmy was just riding out in Catalina Island is almost double the price. When you look at this bike, it's a real full-size motorcycle. It'll get you up to highway speeds. Now, do I want to ride back and forth from my parents' house 40 or 50 miles in both directions commuting to work? Absolutely not. But can I leave my front door, hop on 76 and ride 6 miles down in the Navy Yard to RevZilla's headquarters every day? I can. And when I consider that fact, when I think about all the other modern motorcycles out there from major manufacturers, the one that this thing reminds me the most of is probably Suzuki's TU250X. And that's a motorcycle that still has an MSRP of about $4,600. So really where this wins is its price point. It's a motorcycle that pretty much anybody out there can afford. It's the gateway drug that we've really been looking for. But we're not done reviewing this yet, because the number one question that you, the viewers, our readers, had for us was how this thing is gonna hold up over time. I mean, this is a Chinese motorcycle and there's a lot of doubt surrounding CSC. So we're gonna keep riding it, not just me, Lemmy, Lance, Greaseman, the new guy over at Common Tread. We're gonna put miles on this motorcycle, and if you wanna see how this thing does, make sure you sign up for our mailing list to keep up with all the Common Tread articles we're rolling out. And as always, subscribe to us on YouTube to keep up with all the video content that you can find at RevZilla.com. I wanna thank you for joining us for this first ride review of the SG250 from CSC. I'm Spurge, enjoy the ride.